Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff, Tammy McManus, and I'm delighted to say Motherwell manager Stuart Kettlewell is our special guest on today's programme. There's lots to talk about, and here's what's on the agenda.
Rangers boss Philippe Clement insists players must be punished for reckless tackles in order to see them eradicated from the game.
It's a reckless tackle with your studs in front, and it doesn't matter then if you break a leg or not.
Brendan Rodgers bemoans injury woes to key players but believes the return of Celtic star men will see performances improve. Neil Warnock urges Aberdeen not to waste time in their search for a permanent manager after his shock Don's exit.
I felt they need to bring the manager in quickly. I think he needs to have a couple of months looking at the squad now.
Nick Montgomery blasts one Rangers star over the incident which saw Hibs midfielder Nathan Mariah Welsh sent off in their Scottish Cup tie.
Respect for John Lundstrum, top player, but I thought the way he went down, Nathan didn't catch him.
Yeah, lots to talk about. Of course, Scottish Cup quarter-finals will dominate our thoughts, as well as getting a great insight from Stuart on the perils of management and trying to keep the fans from moaning about the way your team's playing or being very positive about them. We've got lots to talk to you about that as well, Stuart. Just quickly, Ruffy, I did not see out of left field the Neil Warnock situation developing.
No, I think this is I think we're all caught in the hope. I think it was obviously discussions during the week. I know I get what he's saying. You need to get somebody in quick, rather than wait until the end of the season and you can see what you've got in front of you. But I would have thought he would have hung about until they got that person, because he said if it's imminent, why not just stay until the guy comes and then leave?
Yeah, whoever's coming in, Neil Warnock reckons he's obviously prepared the way for him.
I felt they need to bring the manager in quickly. I think he needs to have a couple of months looking at the squad now in depth, because I think to be successful, and I think he can be successful with the right recruitment, I think that it gives them a couple of months to assess it. And I think the hard bit now, I think, has been done, because I think the standards they've set, I think they'll keep to them now. So I think that, I think I've probably helped the new manager come in and make his job a little bit easier.
It's a strange one, Stuart, isn't it? Such a short period of time.
I think like the rest of us in Scottish football, obviously there was a weekend off for us this weekend, which still sticks in my throat, Peter. I was hoping that we'd be involved in the quarter-finals. But no, listen, I think just very, very strange, the timing. Obviously they get a victory, it's what they've kind of been striving for. I know they had won previous against Bonnyrigg in the last round of the Cup, but I think it's all seemed as if it was going to be a kind of set plan of moving towards, I think we all felt probably the end of the season, and then things would change thereafter. But the timing is a little bit bizarre. I think that probably you look at how things have been at Aberdeen over the last couple of seasons, and I think that most of the supporters will tell you they're looking for that bit of stability. They want a bit of continuity. It's such a big club, which we all allude to all the time, and I think it's caught a lot of people in the hop. And for myself, obviously managing against them this weekend coming, it probably leaves it a wee bit open-ended for us as well, because we like to prepare meticulously about who's the manager going to be, how's the opposition going to set up. And I think just in light of this, then that throws a few things in the air for us potentially.
Yeah, Peter Leven will take charge, unless, of course, in the next few days suddenly a manager emerges. This is what Aberdeen had to say on the whole situation, and I think people were trying to read between the lines on it. The club, working with our partners, have compiled a shortlist with a combination of individuals we have identified that meet the key criteria we have agreed, and the individuals that have expressed serious interest in the role. We plan to conduct a number of interviews this week and, in certain cases, seek permission to do so where managers are under contract elsewhere. Our aim is to appoint a first-team manager during the upcoming international break. In the meantime, Peter Leven will continue in interim charge, assisted by Scott Anderson and Craig Sampson. So, there are names that we've all been discussing. One of them, of course, Stephen Robinson. We've mentioned him. We've mentioned our very own Neil Lennon here as a pundit on the programme. I'm hearing Michael O'Neill. Michael O'Neill sitting in his house and heard all the rumours himself. So unless someone comes out of left field, it's a strange situation that he leaves. And as Stuart alluded to there, nobody's ultimately announced on the Monday, which I thought was going to be the case.
Yeah, I think it's very strange, Peter. I think that, you're talking about Stephen Robinson. I don't think Stephen Robinson would leave St Mirren midway through the season.
For Aberdeen?
For Aberdeen. Do you think he would leave midway through the season, Peter? I think he would at least see it to the end of the season. St Mirren are in a great position at the minute. They might finish in the top 4 this season, and then I think he's maybe in a stronger position in the summer. But, according to that statement, it looks as if they've got people lined up. They've been interviewing people in the background when Neil's been in the job. So I just think it's a really, really strange situation that they find themselves in. And Peter Leven's coming back in. He obviously had a great result against Celtic. And he comes back in against Motherwell at the weekend. He'll be looking to maybe throw his hat in the ring as well. So, no, I think it's a weird one, Peter, and it'll be interesting to see where Aberdeen go next, because the last 4 managers haven't worked out, and maybe they're looking for a safer pair of hands to take them forward.
Well, on that basis, Ravi, if I can throw my tuppence worth here, I think, and it's only because of the generations of teams and fans that have watched Aberdeen, I think Aberdeen are a bigger club than St Mirren. I have suggested that if they were looking at someone who has got that experience, for me, Stephen Robinson's the front runner. If they're looking for someone to change the attitude of the club, the ruthlessness, the siege mentality, to try and get someone who understands the league and understands a good player, and he's got a good CV, then Neil Lennon's a shoe-in. I understand where Tom's coming from Stephen, from a loyalty perspective, but I think Aberdeen are a bigger club.
Oh, I think they are a bigger club. I mean, you look at the attendance they get; they're getting 16,000, 18,000 if they're on a run. So they are a bigger club. But I think you've got to show a bit of loyalty somewhere, and I think Tom's just touched on it. I mean, St Mirren have got a chance of European football, which they haven't had for a wee while. That would be something that you, as a manager, I'm sure Stuart would agree, that you'd want to achieve, with that kind of club. But I mean, I don't know who's deciding the managers up there. Assuming there's a company coming in, a consultancy.
Yeah. No, there's an insight from a sporting company who have come in and conducted an internal review into the entire package, the structure of youth policy, the academy, how they go forward, and how they go about looking for the ideal candidates. This one's such a big call, isn't it?
Yeah, this is one I hate to say I told you so. I remember speaking to you when I came out of management at Ross County, Peter. We had a pretty extensive interview, which was great during COVID. And obviously there's a spell for me where you're just an avid Scottish football fan. You follow absolutely everything. But they hate to say I told you so, but as they had no bad guy in charge previously, didn't they? And Derek McInnes, somebody I respect so much, and I think sometimes you always think that the grass is greener on the other side, and sometimes you think that you can get better than what you've had and all the rest of it. I feel really strong on that one, because I felt it was someone that was doing an excellent job, had them in a position that they probably should be. There might be 1 or 2 complaints for 1 or 2 when Derek was in charge, that there was no Rangers for a spell in the league, and maybe winning 1 piece of silverware as it were. I think we all knew where we stood with Aberdeen at that point. I think we all knew that they were as it were the second force when Rangers weren't there, sort of third force for a spell when Rangers came back into the league or thereabouts. I just think that they had a really good manager, and I think that a lot of Aberdeen fans at the time spoke out and want rid of him and want to see something fresh and something new. I think if you speak to a lot of them now, they would maybe ask for him back again when you see the work he's doing at Kilmarnock.
I think you're right, and I have to say, I nearly fell off the couch there when Ruffy talked about loyalty. There's no two-way street when it comes to clubs with loyalty to managers, and you've got to think of yourself and think 2 to 3 years, the next man in there, if he wins something with Aberdeen, if he gets them any kind of forum, you've got a 2 to 3 year plan there.
Yeah, it's been a weird season for Aberdeen, because I thought in the European games, I thought they put in some really, really strong performances. I thought they looked good at spells, but domestically they've struggled with the Thursday, Sunday. I think Barry Robson struggled with that, the squad depth, but I think Aberdeen have got a good squad of players. I think they've heavily invested in their team. The wage bill up there, I heard Derek McInnes talking about the other day. If I had that budget, I'd be laughing. But no, I think they're seriously underachieving, Peter, with the squad they've got. And for them to be, I think they're only 4 points ahead of Ross County with that squad of players. So I think somebody that comes in can get a bounce straight away, Peter. But I don't think it'll be Stephen Robinson. I don't think Stephen would leave St Mirren now.
Yeah. Only one of us,
I might be proved wrong.
Well, only time will tell. Only one of us picked Aberdeen to win at the weekend. Okay, get your condescending look out.
No. There was 4 of us on the panel, and I stuck my neck out in Aberdeen because I'd obviously seen some of the games they'd played, and I thought there was something there. It was just, the silly goals they were losing, and they weren't getting through the game, getting 100% out of 90 minutes. Something was generally going to happen. I just think sometimes when you're at a football club, things just click on the day, and I just thought that this was going to be the day that so obviously the weekend there, that it would click, and it did. Everything went their way, and they got the goals at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a difficult thing because we're guilty of it in the media. At times looking and saying, okay, certain clubs, you've got to try and go for a safe pair of hands, or maybe somebody who's got a good CV, and you associate that with Aberdeen. But somewhere along the line, someone's got to give a young manager the chance. You were kind of thrust into it at a point where maybe you didn't think you were going to be thrust into it.
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways of looking at it. I think when I first started management, I was at Ross County. I was probably earmarked to go in as the manager at some point. I'd been working away a lot in the background, the youth system and the under-20s, and had quite a bit of success there. And then when it came about for me originally, it was possibly to do with my relationship with Roy and the football club and my association there for whatever it was at that point, 10 years or so, having done every single job. So there's sometimes different ways of looking at it, Peter. Sometimes it's purely because you know the football club inside out, which was pretty much the case with me at Ross County. But then I think the flip side, when you look at the Motherwell aspect, you get an audition, don't you? I think for me, I had 2 games in interim charge. We won both games, so you get that audition, and you know what? That might be the only shot you get at showing someone that you believe you can do the job and trying to get a positive reaction off of players. So I think one hang up that I've got a lot of the time is everyone's got a presentation now, and everyone's got a CV, and everyone sells themselves much better than I do on social media, because I'm really not a social media person. I see so many people that tell you they think they know how to do the job, never having walked in the shoes, I should say. For me, I just believe that chairman should have a real vision of what is it they're looking for to drive the football department at their football club. What is it they're after? Is it that young aspiring coach, manager, whatever you want to call it? Some guys like to be on the pitch, some guys like to look from afar, and I just think that there has to be a passion from the football club, and in particular the chairman and the board as to what they're after. So many times we see guys coming in a matter of, someone like Sean Maloney springs to my mind, that no matter a matter of a few weeks later, he's not the guy for it, but he sold himself with the football club, and they've bought it, and they've thought that this was the person to drive the football club on. So I just really believe you should have an idea of what you're after and what specifically you're looking for. A lot of the guys you've mentioned already, I think we know them really well because they've got track records and they've done really good work. So if that's the case, that's where you would go. If it's something slightly different you're looking for, then you have to believe in it, and I think you have to stick by it as well, Peter. That's the other thing.
Do you think an owner then should be listening to somebody with experience, because he's obviously got it wrong in the last 2 or 3 times? Should he be tuning into somebody, and a football knowledge? Because we know, I'm not knocking people on boards, but a lot of the people on boards are not football people. They're business. They're business, and so I think this time he's got to 100% tap into the right people to get the right person.
I think it's a great point, Ruffy. I think, you look at the guys at Aberdeen, if we want to speak about Aberdeen specifically, you've got somebody like Alan Burrows, who I know worked with for a short spell at Motherwell, but Alan's worked within the game in Scotland for a lot of years. So
and he's worked with Stephen Robinson. He knows.
Absolutely, and he's well regarded in the game in this country. Has spent an awful lot of time behind the scenes at Motherwell specifically, but now Aberdeen. You've got Stephen Gunn, I think, up there that's been involved for a long period of time, which he holds a pretty prestigious job within their football club as well. So I think that there are people there that you can lean on. But I think it's another good point as well. Do you actually go to someone that's had their boots on the ground? Do you go to someone that really understands that specific football club? Because that's different. And for me, Aberdeen's different from a lot of football clubs in this country. Compare it to Motherwell, for example. They're worlds apart in terms of the size of the football club, the financial investment, etc. So I just think that the point that Ruffy makes is probably a very, very good one. Without being knee-jerk, you probably should have those minds that you lean on and probably take value from.
Yeah, thank God you won those first 2 games, by because he'd have wanted you out. He's like a roller coaster of managers. You don't get 3 games. He had Lee Johnson.
I've had to be with Hibs, by the way.
He had Lee Johnson in and out like a bloody yo-yo. It was incredible.
Funny you say that. I think my first game was against St Mirren. We're speaking about Stephen Robinson. I'm sure he'll not mind me saying, but it's a catchphrase that I've heard him using a few times. You're 3 games from being the Messiah, and you're 3 games away from being the worst manager on planet Earth. It's so true, isn't it? That's how the game works in this country.
And by the way, do you think it's become more ruthless in that sense because of the really acceleration and increase in social media? I think sometimes, we say it on this programme, hold on a minute. You're actually listening to people saying sack the manager after 7 games.
Yeah, and listen, it's probably where I need to go on record. It's a good opportunity for me to speak about it. You probably have done in this show several times when we found ourselves in a really, really bad run, and our board and the guys that have been behind me and shown me a lot of good support behind the scenes at Motherwell. Hopefully you feel as if you start to reward them for the trust that they've shown in you. The conversation was never had with regards myself. There was never even a hint or a suggestion, which allows you to get on with your job. Yeah. That thought of what might come the next day or whatever, that was never a suggestion. It was never in a conversation. And I think the most important thing for me is, and everyone will tell you, and the guys will tell you, having been in a dressing room for so long as they were, the trust that I've had from my own players and the backing I've had from my own players. And I tend to feel that alludes to the fact that you're doing something right that they've bought into, even when sometimes the results aren't right, that you believe you can come out the other side of it. But if we're listening to social media and we're listening to keyboard warriors, then a manager walks a tightrope every week.
I think another thing that kills managers as well is the stats.
Yeah.
It's when you say it goes out there, haven't won a game for 12 games. But you probably drew 8 or 9 of them.
Right.
But the 12 of no winning is a killer.
You can frame it whatever side you want to frame it.
The worst part of it all, and this is the one that I absolutely hate, is the fact that sometimes you have to get in and say, and it's the dreaded question, I hate firing it to a manager, but do you still think you're the man that can take this club forward? I mean, the amount of times I've said that and looked at a manager and I think, oh please, this is just the worst question ever.
Again, a really good example for me, I think Jane Lewis, somebody that I've known through doing bits with the BBC and various things, and Jane asked me the question after the Rangers game, but I could see the look on her face that she didn't want to particularly ask the question, but it's her job, she needs to, and I think my answer was very definitively, I announced my own sacking at Ross County, so you'll be the first people to hear if that's going to be the case, because that's unusual to do that, I think, as I did at the time. But I tell you what, an experience it gives you moving forward in terms of being comfortable in that type of environment and being able to handle it.
Did you feel, although we're coming into the difference between you and that pressure that you were mentioning there at Motherwell, sometimes I can get into a press conference and I listen, engage the players. I always say to journalists who work for us, and I've always gauged it the same way when I was working for other big companies, is quite simply, don't let your eyes deceive you. Look at a team and assess the way they're going and how they're playing, and then you get a sense of whether a manager's in trouble or not. And I never got that sense from your players that you'd lost them. I actually thought they were battling for you, and I could see signs of the way you were playing that I thought, there's something there. Sometimes you can see a manager on the team, you think, it's gone.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, and I think I'd be the first person to hold my hand up if that feeling came in, because you know that you've lost control and you know that there's no buy-in for your players. We can go into all the technicalities of how we work, the specifics of how we want to play, but when I still see my players giving absolutely everything, even through bad runs, bad performances, bad results, and you've got that full buy-in from them, that's the most important part. Everything else you'll be able to come out the other side, dealing with the injuries, dealing with the odd goal defeat, last minute goals against Celtic, and being so competitive as we were. Ruffy said it, the stats and the data and everything alludes to, this is a terrible run. But if you really start to go into the specifics of some of how those games transpired, but I think the big one for us a lot of the time was how good we come late in the game, because if you've given up and you don't want to be a part of it, it gets worse, it doesn't get better towards the end of games. And I think that was a kind of fundamental for us, that we were coming strong towards the end of games. We wanted to start them better, but by the end of the game you could still see what the players were pulling into the game.
Just as a wee, obviously we're going to ask questions about the other games, lads, but I just want to get a wee insight into you from the Celtic game that you mentioned. Your team played so well. See, at times when you're a man, you get in the car, do you just get into a darkened room and want to smash your head off the wall?
You remember that Only Fools and Horses when they're screaming in the fan? I think that was my car after the Celtic game. The car shaking from side to side. But genuinely, that's twice this season at home to Celtic. I think they scored in the second last minute, and they scored in the very last minute, last kick of the ball with Matt O'Reilly. And there's lots of good bits to take from it in the cool light of day when you start to watch our performance, see how we played, goals we scored in the game, threat we carried, how we defended. But when you get to that dying embers, and I kind of said that it was a brilliant learning curve for us. At 6 days, I think it was, Celtic on the Sunday and Rangers at Ibrox on the Saturday, and I spoke about it after the Celtic game, and it was a great one for me because I speak about those learning, those teachable moments, and I felt that we started to retreat. I felt that one or two players looked a wee bit fatigued mentally as much as they were physically, but then we went into 98 minutes at Ibrox and we're 2-1 ahead, and we sort of stood strong. So I thought there was so many lessons learned for 6 days previous when we played against Celtic, and then you go to Ibrox and the crowd are on top of you, and we managed to come out on the right side of it. So it's a brilliant one for me after the game to go and speak to the players and say that's what I was talking about. You know, we didn't look as weak mentally, we looked as if we were in a position where we wanted to see out and go and try and get what our just rewards were. So that's brilliant for me, because we've got a lot of boys, first loans, young Lennon Miller we'll speak about, 17 years old, guys with limited experience in Scotland. So we need to teach them, we need to be able to learn from these moments. If we keep doing the same thing all the time, of course it's a frustration, but no, I was definitely frustrated after the Celtic game, but 6 days later just shows you again how that feeling can change in football.
Yeah. Listen, Aberdeen managed to see off Kilmarnock. Of course, I think the reason why most of us tipped Kilmarnock is because obviously they were playing well, and they certainly had the measure of Aberdeen in previous meetings. And I think Derek McInnes is first to concede that it didn't quite go according to plan despite all the expectation. Expectations
have been raised, but we never met that expectation today, and sometimes that's the way it goes. I expected better from us today, but that's what ourselves doing. We've got 9 games left. We've got to try and get ourselves into the top 6. We've got a huge game next week against St Mirren, and hopefully, say, if we can be a top 6 team, go right through the line and finish the season strong, then the time for reflecting on a good campaign is in May, not now. Okay, so Aberdeen go in at the expense of Kilmarnock. Hibs 0, Rangers 2. As ever, there's always a contentious chat at the end of a weekend of quarter-final ties, and of course, when you get Hibs and Rangers locking horns, there's more than a fair few incidents in that match. What one do you want to start with? Because
we'll start.
Red cards justifiable?
I thought the second booking for Obita was soft, but I think that was more persistent fouling. I think he had 2 or 3 fouls before that. I think the referees just said, right, that's enough, that's a second yellow. The lunge with Welsh, I think, was a yellow. People can argue, and I get people can argue it was dangerous, it was out of control. I don't think he went in to do him. I think he tried to go in to block the ball up the line, and he's went in 2-footed. I thought it was a yellow card, Peter, but when he gave the red, I didn't think he was going to overturn it. So I think Hibs are a wee bit hard done by with both of those. The penalty, again, I've seen them given all season and I've seen them not given. I think Martin Boyle's had a couple where he's went down in that situation, he's not got the penalty. Maybe his reputations went before him, but again, that's a 50-50 one for me. I don't think there was a lot of contact. He left his leg in and he gave the penalty. So I think Hibs are maybe on the wrong side of the three of them, 50-50 decisions.
Yeah, the one problem, and managers, every manager right across the board in Scotland and the UK, they want consistency in the decision. If it's going to happen one week, they want it to happen the same the next week, instead of this kind of dubiety and then a different decision coming. you know, the line that Tam used there, which again I can hear referees throwing things at the television screen. It doesn't matter if the intent is there, if they feel as if it was a reckless challenge and the studs are off and it could have actually done some damage. It's you know, you can say, I didn't mean to do it, but if you're still going through the act and it's in their rule book, they look and say, that's what we see, you're off.
I think the big thing ultimately, and do you know what, I sort of agree with Tam on this one, in that if it's given as a yellow card, do they change it to a red? You know, no, they're not going to look at that again, and it very much at times goes on the initial decision. However, when you come off the ground and you run from that distance to get across, and we can sort of see it from a mile away, there's a particular angle when you can see him coming at that pace, and it's the bit where he comes off the ground with 2 feet and he looks completely out of control. And if the referee just gets a snapshot of that instantly, then I think that's the bit that they're possibly going to go on. Now, don't want to cast up another debate. I think there was a lot of talk surrounding Dan Casey's challenge on Ross McCausland last week at Ibrox, and some were saying it was, you know, it wasn't even a tackle because Dan Casey's there miles before McCausland. Some are saying it's a red card, etc. If you actually watch that one back, at no point does he come off the ground, at no point is he leading with his studs, at no point is it a straight leg. It's just when I start to look at that one there, for the second red card for Hibs, I'm starting to see someone coming off the ground and being a bit out of control. So, you know, I played in a day and I played in such a way whereby these were all accepted, but again, as Tam says, you're now starting to see those if you go in, and there was a wee bit of discipline at that point, you have to say, from Hibs as well. Albeit us pushing off the physio at one point, isn't he? He's having a shove at the physio and a player, so I thought it was just sort of building up towards that.
Yeah, and with that in mind, and we're talking about VAR consistently, what's the biggest gripe, apart from obviously the consistency of the decision, what's the biggest gripe that you hear now among your fraternity of managers that you want to see change? Because ultimately, Stuart, we talk about it, referees are asked, you know, to get a get-together at the start where managers, and they want to chat to them and say, right, here's the rules, here's the implementation, here's some slight changes in the rules, and they want communication. So, from the guys that you're speaking to, what is the thing that's irking you the most that you have had a chat about and you might put forward to them at the end of the season?
But I think there's a couple of ways I can tackle the question, to be honest. Where I sit with it, and I don't want to be controversial in any way, shape or form, I had a couple of instances and I'd spoken to Crawford Allen and had those conversations which are renowned, I think, from managers on a Monday morning. I now sit in a position where I won't be doing that again. I've made my points, I've provided video evidence, I've tried to fight the cause for my football club, which we're all fighting our own cause. You know, as much as you say, what's that collective feeling? Well, the answer to that one is it's all different, because we've all felt as if we've been done a disservice with various different decisions.
Why won't you be doing it again?
No, just very simply because for me, I'm always a person that likes to see change, and I'm always somebody that likes to see action. So if you talk about a coach or a manager from my side of things, I need to see change from my players. If I don't see change from my players, then potentially they don't play at your football club, they're no longer at your football club. And I know that does seem a wee bit extreme. But
so you want to see change from referees?
There has to be a change, but I think sometimes to see change, there has to be an acknowledgement to mistakes and errors. You know, I speak about coachability from a player's point of view. I want to work with players that are coachable. See, if I get someone that comes in with a huge ego and someone that's not prepared to acknowledge an error or a mistake in conjunction with our football club, or whether that's in conjunction with Scottish football, how can we change it? How's it ever going to change? It's always going to remain a problem. So I think very simply for me, I can become a little bit emotional, I can become a little bit fiery, and what I need to concentrate on now is, as much as possible, that we get the best version of a Motherwell team that we can, and the bits that I can actually control. Me phoning on a Monday now and trying to get the answers I'm looking for, or trying to have some sort of change, it doesn't seem to be happening. So I then end up putting in 5-10% of my energy into that type of thing, and I just think it's completely unnecessary now from my side yet. Other people will see it a different way. That's the way that my mindset is now, Peter. That's how I'm going. I'm not trying to be controversial, that's just how I sit on it now.
Is there a movement that you think the managers will get together? Have you voiced your concerns among the fellow managers that we need to do something at the end of the season. I'm not going to phone them on the Monday, but we need to get together and change this.
But there needs to be 100% buy-in for that to happen, you know, not just from the managers, because, you know, I think I heard something labelled towards the managers that we're just now blaming referees because you're trying to save your own back and all the rest of it. Well, I can 100% say that I never try and blame anybody for my own shortcomings. I'm honest enough to take responsibility, but I've heard that thrown out there. One of the things that I've been huge on all season, honestly, since the first game of the season, one thing that was brought to my attention was aerial challenges in football. I urge you to go back through and have a look at some of the aerial challenges that there's been this season. We've had Paul McGinn with a fractured cheek, and it's a play on, and we were told we were given an advantage from it. I look at Alistair Johnson's against Hibs, and we speak about that one and the penalty awarded. I've seen people, you talk about this making a back for somebody. This is where I go into my rant. In rugby, where it's so dangerous when somebody's elevated in the air and someone comes and takes their weight from underneath them. I provided video evidence for this. I've continually spoken about it. I spoke to match officials on the day about it, and it just keeps happening. And I think the biggest problem is we don't actually know what we're looking for anymore. There was an incident at Dens Park with Dundee with Michael Mellon. The game rages on and they wait to see what happens with the attack. The lad's line sparked out on the pitch and the referee doesn't stop the game. So I don't think we know what we're looking for anymore. And surely in this day and age, now again, I'm somebody that likes the robust nature of football, contact, tackles, etc. But surely in this day and age, this is something, and that's one point from me that we have to start to eradicate and make sure that we do something for change, for the better.
Well, thankfully, when there was an aerial challenge and Martin Boyle came off second best, John Souttar was dazed. Martin Boyle was, had a concussion. Thankfully, I think he's going to have a few days rest, but they were able to get him off, although it was a long delay.
Yeah, it was. It looked a bad one for Martin. I read this morning that he's sitting up and he's fine and he's stable and his family's around him and that, so I don't know what the concussion protocol is in terms of how many games he might possibly miss, but yeah, I totally agree with Stuart there. Head injuries in particular, and any sort of, the game's got to get stopped immediately. You've got to get your medical team on there, physios, medical team onto that. People can swallow their tongues. You need to get people on there quickly.
Tam, just I'll throw one into you then. We speak about the follow-throughs with the ground challenges all the time. You say you're in control, your follow-through with ground challenges. How can that be any different with an aerial challenge? See if I'm going to head the ball now and I head it first and you come through and clatter me with your head. How's that any different from what happens with the boots and run about the shins and the knees and stuff?
Yeah, it should be. And you mentioned the penalty kick for Celtic against Hibs, where Triantis comes through and clatters Alistair Johnson. Yeah. And people were saying, it's a 50-50 ball, it's a clear penalty, it's a foul. And if you compare it to someone, as you said, the ball's on the ground and you win the ball, follow through and somebody and break the leg, and it's a foul. So no, I think Stuart's right there, and that's an area of the game that we've got to look at in deeper terms, I think.
Yeah, of course, that was just one of a number of contentious issues in that game. Even the Rangers manager, Philippe Clement, is looking for some harsh penalties handed out for reckless challenges.
It's a reckless tackle with your studs in front, and it doesn't matter then if you break a leg or not. It's just reckless. So I think it's important to get that kind of tackles out of the game. Because we've seen the last couple of weeks sometimes where we didn't get this red card. I was not happy about that. Also that moment. I think it's not good for Scottish football, English football, Belgian football, German football, tackles like that. Players need to know that if you tackle like that you get a red card.
Yeah, the positive sign for Rangers on the day is they were able to get away with a 2-0 win, and a rare sight of James Tavernier missing a penalty. But they got the job done, Ruffy.
Yeah, they got a wee break for the penalty. I mean, Marsh saved it. It could have went anywhere, but he was sharp enough to follow it in and get there before one of the Hibs players. But it 1-0 before the first player got sent off. As we all know in the game, it's not done and dusted. There was still a wee bit to go in that game. I think Hibs would have thought they'd have got another couple of chances, but at the end of the day, obviously the second goal killed the game. But they're getting a wee bit their own way now. They're getting the breaks. They're playing well. The confidence is there. They're not losing goals, and I think the sending off was a bad one. I think the boy had been watching a Bruce Lee film before he'd come into the game. It was shocking.
Yeah. Just as a little footnote, we've had a debate about it on countless shows, but I have mentioned before, and I'm sure you would love a James Tavernier on your side. This is a boy, we mentioned it on one of our other programmes. When I look at his goal scoring, he's one goal away from becoming the UK's highest scoring defender ever. I mean, okay, he missed a penalty. It's no mean feat for him. I think when he chucks it, some people are going to look back and think, you know, what a contribution he's made.
Unbelievable, you know. I just keep looking at it's his availability as well. He's always fit, he's always available. He plays midweeks, he plays weekends, but he plays 90 minutes. And we've seen him scoring every type of goal as well. Penalties, free kicks, coming in at the back post, shots from distance.
Yeah.
I think one or two people have criticised his defending on occasion, and you understand that. But listen, if you're pitching in with those types of numbers, then I think we'd be happy with strikers with those types of figures, wouldn't we?
Well, we've had an argument, just out of curiosity as a manager. I tend to I always try and look and say, what about looking at the positives of what a person can do? You know, okay,
we don't in this country, but we look at the negatives.
We look at the negatives.
What can't he do?
I mean, if I was looking and I'm thinking I've got James Tavernier on my side, I'm thinking he can score goals anytime.
It's the nature of football, isn't it? Where would Rangers be without those goals and without his performances and availability, as I mentioned there as well?
Do you warn your team sometimes, for God's sake, don't 20 yards out, think long and hard about it?
Don't give away any penalties. We didn't do that last week. So he scored. Have you seen his penalty against us? Liam Kelly obviously knows him, played with him for a spell, but it didn't matter if he told him where it was going, he wasn't saving it, you know, right in the top corner. But yeah, even 25 yards out, anywhere around about that box, left or right, because he can reverse them as well.
Yeah.
We do speak about it. We do say that you have to be careful. And I'm not going to go back into a referee debate here and whether they give free kicks in those areas, Peter. I don't want to go down that route. But nah, he's the guy's an absolute phenomenon with the numbers that he pitches in.
Yeah. Just a little footnote on Hibs as far as the investment's concerned. The board has changed. They brought on the directors. Bill Foley has joined the board. I'm really going to be interested in what happens in the summer with Hibs.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much investment already from the Gordon family in terms of the infrastructure of the club, you know, the training ground. There's been a lot of improvements to that. The hospitality side of it at Hibs is top notch, I'm led to believe. So there's been a lot of money put in. Now they've got to get it right on the park, Peter. And again, got to stick with Nick Montgomery. You know, he's now shown, you know, I think he's changed from the 4-4-2, which we were on about him. I think they were getting her down in the middle of the park at times. He was too open, too expansive. They're playing the 3 in there now. They're getting more positive results. But I think in the summer, I think you'll see Hibs going and trying to push and maybe the budget goes a little bit higher. Hibs are paying big money as it is now, you know, in terms of Scottish football. But I think in the summer, you maybe see some big transfer fees coming in from a Hibs point of view, bringing players in and really having a go to try and get in that third place again.
Yeah, I know you don't know that much about the hospitality, but Hall of Famers know what hospitality's like there, Ruffy. You get a starter and a main course.
Yeah, but most of us have got our own room. You know? You're very welcome to come anytime. Just give me a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's all go and do the half-time draw. Eh? Celtic 4, Livingston 2, Ruffy. I think fair play to Livingston. They made a right go of it, didn't they?
Yeah, they certainly did. I'm sure David will be happy with the performance. I think at one stage at 2 each, I think like every manager, you'd be fingers crossed, you know, can we see this out? But Celtic are notorious in the last 5 minutes or 5 minutes into injury time. They always seem to come up for it, but it wasn't a healthy performance. Yeah, getting 4 goals is positive, but I think defensively they looked ragged. They just, we've spoken about it on numerous occasions, the back 4 isn't a solid back 4. It's been 2 guys in, 2 guys out, so that is not continuity. You know, you're not going to be oozing a confidence that you're not going to lose a goal, and that's what it looked like the other day there. It looked like, you know, they just lack of confidence at the back.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers after the game obviously talking about the fact that, as Ruffy said there, players are in and out. If you're missing the amount of players that we were, the football won't be the same. Once we get those players back, the level of performance will increase. Other teams will grind it out and get a result. We know we have to win and play well. We didn't play well, but we won and we're into the semi-final, and that makes me very happy. He also said something that James Forrest is the best winger the club's got. Now, I always try to read into managers. Sometimes it's what Stuart doesn't say that I take away from a press conference. And when Brendan Rodgers says James Forrest is the best winger, he's just signed somebody for £3.5 million. That tells me more than anything about how he feels about the staff that he's got available to him.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with Kuhn yesterday. I thought that he played well, Peter, and I've not seen it so far from him in particular. I think he's looked poor, to be honest, so far, but I thought he showed yesterday that he has got something. I thought first half he was excellent, Peter, cutting inside, and playing little balls through, and he looked a real threat. I totally agree with Ruffy. I think without Carter Vickers at the back, Celtic look all over the place. They're nervy. I didn't think Welsh and Scales handled, the big striker yesterday particularly well either. So he needs Carter Vickers and particularly McGregor back in that team, or else I think teams will go like Livingston and smell blood.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan Rodgers isn't watching the highlights of West Brom with Mickey Johnson. He's absolutely tearing it up.
He's not only that, Ruffy, he's scoring worldies.
Oh.
I mean, there's no tap-ins. It's absolutely top drawer. But sometimes, as you know, Stuart, players are not at the forefront of the manager's mind to get into the side, and they just think, I've got to go and play.
Do you know what? I admire him for doing that, because listen, he's going to a really good club, and he's going to a really good league to do so, and the fact that he's pitching in, I've seen a couple of the goals he scored, and we all know his ability as well, don't we? I think we've all seen it in flashes. But now, just going back to the James Forrest one with Celtic, I think that's I think it tells us how good a player he's been, but what I thought was notable about it as well was it's not that he's not capable of doing it anymore. It's just that intensity for a period of 90 minutes and being able to do it continuously. We're talking about that availability with Tavernier. Is he able to keep doing it? And I think when you've seen Celtic, I only say this from a manager's point of view and preparing to play against them, the one big change for me this year has been that threat in the wide areas, because that's where I felt that Celtic really hurt you in the past. We speak about Kyogo's goals, but it was getting into those wide positions with penetration, and how many goals did they score where it was that cut back across the box because they'd penetrated the wide area. And I think that that's something that they've found really difficult to find a level of consistency. But the other one that I would say is Carter Vickers for me. I think they brought him on against us in the second half. Yeah. For me, the difference, again, without being disrespectful, it's just that I think he's a top player. Recovery pace, dominates, plays well on the ball, and it changed the game, I felt. And you don't often say that, bringing on a centre-back, that it's completely changed the game, but I think it did for Celtic on that day.
He never looks flustered.
Oh, he's, we were talking about Theo Bair and his pace and his power and how he can get in behind people. There was a foot race between the two of them at one point, and they kind of stayed that same distance away. And we've seen in recent weeks that Big Theo eat up the ground and catch quick centre backs and go beyond them. And there was a race with himself and Carter Vickers, and I just felt that for me he just brings a real steadiness to the backline, but it probably allows them to attack with much more confidence as well, rather than that turnover of the ball and how they might concede going the opposite direction. I think he makes a huge difference. Cal McGregor speaks for himself, doesn't he, about what he does in the middle of the park, but you just look at Carter Vickers, I think he's been a huge loss this season when he's missed out.
Why do you think Kyogo's not been as prolific? Have the team sort of changed their mindset? You've already touched on it. They get the ball wide and it comes in. Have you changed anything for that ball coming into him? And that's what's making it even harder for him his strengths.
Genuinely, for me, Ruffy, I think it's the wide area. I don't think it's so much what he does, because we watch all kinds of analysis preparing to play against Celtic, and you look at his movement, at times it's still razor sharp, but what Celtic were looking to do, and I think people got confused about this and how good Kyogo was. Yeah, he was good, but he's constantly playing in that offside position. He's always on the opposite side of the centre backs. Yeah. So it was the ability to penetrate, as I say, beyond your wing backs, your full backs down the side, which I think brought him into the game so much. And I don't think they've had that. And I think that's where he's suffering a little bit, or has suffered a little bit.
6-yard area when he's
phenomenal,
rushing on.
Absolutely brilliant. But I think he needs to be serviced from the wide areas. That idea of him pinning a centre back, kind of in the middle area of the opposition half, it's really not going to be a thing. It's the speed of movement, speed of thought, but I think he's dependent on the others round about him, which I don't think's just been as crisp and as sharp for Celtic in spells this season.
Let's talk about your team and the players that you have at your availability. Ruffy and I'm sure Tam's in this camp as well. huge fans of Spittal. I mean, my God Almighty, he just seems to have moved on to another level again, or there's a spark in him that says I can really grab a game.
Yeah, I think long story short on that one, I'd signed Blair Spittal at Ross County when I was the manager. Signed him from Partick Thistle at the time. I stole him. Gave me a dig in the ribs there when he said that.
Just let it go. Is there any chance?
I must admit, I just always just felt that he's that guy that, you know, we speak about his quality, his goals, his assists, which has been phenomenal this year. But it's just his all-round play. It's everything he does. He offers us plenty defensively. His energy, how he presses when we don't have the ball. A bit of leadership in there as well. But he's just maturing into such a good footballer for me, and I think it starts to does epitomise it when you see the quality of goals he's scoring, the quality of his assists. I've said that I am biased. I think he's been one of the standout performers in the league overall this season, not just for Motherwell. I think it's not often you see a midfielder that brings that much to the party.
I think he's got a shout for. I know we're coming to that point where people vote for players of the year. I think he's definitely got a shout for being in the team of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. We don't know how players are going to vote in that sense, but when you have such a big impact on one particular team, then I think that you have to be in that thought process. But I'm really seeing him maturing as well. I think within our system, I know he enjoys playing the type of system and the type of role that we've asked him to play, but it would be remiss of me not to mention the fact that at times I've had to pitch him in as a wing back, left side, right side. Times I've had to play him just off the front. A couple of times we've used him as a number 6 midfielder, and a lot of time that's been based on what we've had at our disposal and our availability. We had such a small group of players, we had a lot of injuries, so sometimes you have to ask your best players to fill slots for you and fill gaps, and he's been fantastic. He barely misses a training session. I think he's only missed one game this season against Hearts a few weeks back with a bit of swelling in his knee, but I can't sing his praises high enough for how good he's been for us.
Yeah, there was one pass the other week there, Tam, and he played it from left of mid, and he must have taken out about 6 players with it. I mean, going forward, I love midfielders who think, let's go forward.
Yeah, I think he's always had talent, Peter. I think he's a talented footballer. You can see technically, you know, his free kicks, his deliveries into the box. He's comfortable on the ball, but I just think, as Stuart said there, I think this season his games went to a new level. And Darren Jackson was in last week, and he said that he's just a kid. And maybe he's just maturing. Maybe it's just, and he looks as if he could go to a higher level. I'm not trying to punt him away from Motherwell, but he looks as if now he could go and play maybe at a higher level. Whereas in the past I've thought inconsistency, in flashes he's looked good. This season he's putting it all together consistently, and he looks a real proper player.
Yeah, I'm not going to be two-faced about this, Ruffy. At times, you know, ducks and dice because doesn't want to offend anybody. I was seriously worried about you in the January transfer window on the basis that we always try and judge who's going to be in the playoff, who's going to be relegated, and it needs to have a goal scorer. And suddenly from I don't know what you did to him, but suddenly Theo Bair just come in, and I think I'd be wrong to say to the boy that he bamboozled us because he's shown in sparks, but he's just really come to the forefront for you.
Yeah, I think our media guys had done a little bit last week, just trying to highlight what he is as a lad. Peter, he's a sponge for knowledge. He's a sponge for trying to make improvements. He works so hard at his game. The other bit that I speak about as well is as much as he's 24-year-old now, he's in the infancy of his career. When you actually look at the minutes he's played on the pitch at senior level, that's a big thing. Guys will tell you that as well. You can be of a certain age, but you look at the minutes you've actually played on the pitch, and he's now getting the opportunity to play. You know, not disrespectful towards St Johnstone, whatever it was there, they only seen it fit at times that he'd maybe get the last 5 or 6 minutes of games. Difficult for a striker to find any kind of rhythm. Tam will tell you that. Obviously, I've never played the position, but I would imagine that not getting that run of 6, 7, 8 games can become difficult to find your feet. So we just love working with him. Fundamentally, from day one, when people might have said that I was mad and want to bring him in, and again, I have to say that we brought him in for significantly less than what he was earning at St Johnstone, so to be able to do that can be a difficult role as well and a difficult job to do. But the lad himself sort of believed in the opportunity, and hopefully that, you know, what we were trying to sell him, how we'd work with him on the pitch, how we'd work with him behind the scenes, but also that chance that he's going to play in our team and he's going to get a chance as a number 9 to play through the middle and try and be your goal scorer. And if you're going to shape a striker, that's exactly how I would shape one. You know, 6'4", before. He's a powerful lad. He can run in behind. He can play. We speak about a platform striker. And again, I will bore you with this. I will speak about playing with that lone striker. And that come from Didier Drogba in my mind, with this guy that could run in behind and play with his back to goal and go 1v1, score with his head, score with his feet. And then I start to say, well, why do we play with one striker when there's so many players that can't do that? You play with a lone striker because you sort of need everything to be able to play as a lone striker. I genuinely feel that he's got all the attributes to play as that lone striker, because he can run in behind, you can pin centre-backs, but he can also start to show signs of scoring goals as well. But full testament to him, he works incredibly hard. I always say you're a facilitator. You show people the way, you try and help them, and you show them the pathway that you think will lead to success, and he's bought into everything that we've done so far, and a wee bit of confidence goes a long way as well.
I don't think Conor Golson will have a tougher game than he did a couple of weeks ago. He gave him a nosebleed all day.
Although you know what it's like, Tam, everybody kind of watches this programme, tapes it, takes a quote, uses it in the headlines. And as soon as you're saying it, I'm thinking, he's our Didier Drogba. I can see it coming. It's just the worst. Theo, we're sorry. It's the worst line ever you could use.
No, but he's been superb. He's been fantastic, and fair play to Stuart getting the best out of him. Obviously at St Johnstone, it didn't quite work for him. I'm sure a few Motherwell fans would have looked at his goal scoring record at St Johnstone and thought, why we bring him in at the club? So you've got to give credit to the coaching staff at Motherwell as well as the player as well.
We're going to talk about the special one now, and I'm just imploring you on this, and I don't know if it's possible, feasible, as life takes people down a road. Ruffy, we talk about him every week. Lennon Miller, he's got a sensible dad in Lee. I've watched him at one point. You threw him on as a sub in a game, and he came into the middle of the park, and I think he's 17, and he's telling the players where he's going to put it. You stand, I'll come here, give me the ball, and he's taking off the back line, and I'm thinking, lumping, God, this guy's 17. Now, I love players to get 100, 150 games with a club before they move on. Are you doing everything in your powers to try and convince him to stay, or is he one of those lads that realises, I need to serve my time? No, but listen, again, through the family, they've been phenomenal. Lennon himself he's an amazing lad for 17. How composed the head he's got on his shoulders. But we managed to sign him in an extra year on top of what he already had. We've managed to retain him for longer than he was originally there, and I think that's
2030.
They don't know that number.
Jim McLean never had contracts like that.
But no, again, from Lennon's agent, his dad, his family, and Lennon himself, most importantly, we've just had massive buy-in. The most important for them all is that he's going to get opportunity to play. When you're as good as what he is, when you're as composed as what he is, he's been to Ibrox and won, he's been to Celtic Park and got a point and played 90 minutes in these games of football. The experiences he's picking up, Peter's just incredible. And I like you, agree. I think when you've played 100 games, you really start to find your voice and you really start to see what type of player you are. But every now and then, there's an absolute gem that comes along at the age of 17 that has the composure that he has the influence he has. We've got a lot of good senior pros in our dressing room, and I think just when you see their facial expressions sometimes on some of the decision making, and I'm taking you out of trouble and almost putting his foot in the ball and calming everybody else down in a game of football, that's a special trait and a special talent to have. I was going to ask you this, and I don't want the boy to obviously, you'll know how grounded he is in his family and everything. I can remember, and I said to Tam and Ruffy, I can remember going down, and I'm not putting him in the same bracket, I can remember going down to David Moyes when he was at Everton, and he says, Peter, I've got a guy, he says, he's only 16, we have to let him train with the first team, he's so good, it's outrageous, and he says, come and see him at training. And we went down to training and Rooney's in the middle of the park bossing the training, and I wonder how, and I'm not putting him in the same camp as Rooney, I'm just asking you, you've played with players, played against players, how good is he? In terms of young players that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of good young players, for me is the best young player that I've worked with. There's no doubt about that, but I keep saying there's so many layers. One, he's a good footballer, he's a really good football player, but two, he's just an even better human being, he's just a brilliant lad, and I think so often you see boys that have played maybe in the games that he's had so far, and I know it doesn't matter me saying this just now because nothing seems to influence him or change his mindset. He's just so composed and so level-headed, and I don't see anything getting him carried away. He just wants to be a good footballer. He wants to play in our team every week. Simple traits for me that are so important that guys will back me up on. You know, watching him playing in a reserve game last year, and other young players that aren't playing at the same level that he is walk off the pitch, and he's almost like that Scarborough donkey, carrying all the kit and all the different jerseys and things, and taking everything off the pitch, and you're saying that's the difference for me. That those little nuggets of just how you approach the game, and no feeling that you're too good to be picking up kit and equipment. We still have them in the young boys' dressing room. I have a first team boy come to my door almost every week saying, is it no time to put him into the first team dressing room? No, because I think he needs to be a 17-year-old as well. His life just now isn't of a 17-year-old in terms of the games and what he's doing on a football pitch. But really important for me that he's still grounded, but also like having him as that kind of leading light in the under-18s dressing room with the guys that are his age. And he will go into the first team dressing room, and he'll have a real place in there as well. But I just feel that that's the right thing just now, that he's in amongst his peers of age, but also that he's the leader and the role model in that dressing room just now, because he's so comfortable when he comes into the first team dressing room and the first team environment anyway.
Yeah, can you keep him another year?
I believe so, yeah, I believe so. That's certainly what he's contracted for, and it would need to be a big change for something to look different.
Yeah, I'm looking at your games before we get to the split. Aberdeen, St Mirren, Dundee and Hibs. Is top six beyond the realms of possibility?
No, listen, I think when we spoke earlier on the show about Aberdeen, for us to be sitting above clubs like Aberdeen just now, I think just puts a reasonable context on it, because I think what we have to offer and what we have to spend in this division's at the absolute bottom end in terms of our budget, our size of squad. I spoke about it in the first 6 months of the season. We had by far the smallest squad in the division. So for us to be sitting in that position with those 4 games to play, being in a decent bit of form and having played well in the last few games, there was one stage this season I would have bitten your hand off for that, Peter, and who's to tell if we turn in 2 performances similar to the Livingston Rangers games, even first half against Celtic, then I've always believed we're a match for anybody. So I look forward to the 4 games, but we're sure as heck not getting carried away with ourselves. We need to perform to go and give ourselves some sort of opportunity. You would need to say Hibs were favourite at this minute in time, but who knows with that string of games to come.
Yeah, Ruffy, just on that point, I'm going to get Stuart's point before we finish on changes that he would like to see. I know Stephen Robinson mentioned he'd love to see it being a bigger league, because the last thing we want is you start off the season and it's a cutthroat, everybody trying to avoid relegation. Is there something that you would like to see change? Not necessarily, I'm not guiding you into a bigger league, but is there something that you would like to see change in our game that would make it better?
Yeah, I think very similar to Stephen in a sense. There are different ways of doing it, Peter. I think Stephen's obviously alluding to the fact the bigger league keeps managers safe for longer and you maybe take a wee bit more risk, but I'm a huge advocate of young talent getting an opportunity in this country. So I've got a couple of thoughts in my head of how that could work. There could be particular rules, whether it's expanding the league so that managers don't feel under pressure as much. I've always been adamant, and you could look through my time as a manager, I'm going to give opportunity young players to try and grow and develop. Every managerial job I've had's been with a view of trying to sell players and try and make money for the football club. Well, what's the best way to do that? You need to give them opportunity. Schooled with Queen's Park, so it's always in my mind to give young players an opportunity. So I think just in general, if I could generalise it, any opportunity that we can to start reducing the age range of our squads, but give our homegrown talent an opportunity to play. They need to be good enough. They need to stress that. They need to show signs of a Lennon Miller and Davy Watson at Kilmarnock's one that I would mention. It's doing really, really well. They need to show those traits, but give us more of an opportunity without at times being under so much pressure. Young players make mistakes, but so do senior players, and I think if we can try and get ourselves into that mindset, we'll not just talk about the game growing in this country, we'll actually start to see the fruits of our labour. Yeah,
couple of things before we finish. Plastic pitches could be a vote to finally get them out of the top flight.
It might be if Livingston go down this season, which looks pretty likely. Then I think the SPFL, I think the clubs will come together, and I think that will be. But then Wraith Rovers could possibly come up. So that puts that. For me, they shouldn't be in the top league, Peter. I think they're good to train on. They're good for kids, rather than a muddy pitch. An AstroTurf is good for technical work, but not in the top league. They should be banned for the top league.
Yeah, you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm just a massive advocate of grass pitches, especially what Tam's saying, they're in the top flight.
Yeah. Ruffy, can't let you go without, I sat down and I thought to myself, come on Liverpool, beat Man City. I mean, it was a wonderful game on the basis that at no point did I see any player in any way scared to take the ball in with 2 or 3 players around him. It was incredible. And the back line playing it out, it was just a joy to watch technically.
Yeah, it is, and that's when you get players of that quality in your team. You know, they all want the ball. You mean Stuart's talking about the 2 or 3 players in the team consistently make themselves available, but these guys, they're making themselves available at every opportunity. They're just helping everybody out, but the quality's there, and you can see the money that they're getting paid. They should be, making themselves available.
If there was one player that you could have taken yesterday out of a side and put it into your own team that you'd love, who would it have been?
Diaz, just purely for his endeavour in the game, watching him running down that left side like a bouncy ball, bouncing off Kyle Walker and umpteen Man City players, and he lacked a wee bit of quality, but what heart, what desire to go and play in that game. And I really enjoyed his performance, I must admit. I thought he was terrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's no Blair Spittal, but
well, to be fair,
we wouldn't swap him.
To be fair, I did watch Diaz against Luton, and he had 6 full chances to score, and one after one there was just frustration. But as you say, he keeps coming back.
Never hides. Always wants the ball, Peter, and tries to make things happen. But yeah, it was a great game of football, and it's going to be. Listen, it's between the 3 of them now. I think Arsenal are top of the league now, so it's going to be a great end to the season. And Tottenham, big Ange, great result for them.
Yeah,
I'd like to see them doing well.
Are you sticking with Man City?
I think Man City will win it.
Man City, yeah.
I've got Man City as well.
Yeah, okay. Right, I'm going to stick with Liverpool. Hopefully they can do it, but nevertheless, I have to say, Stuart, absolutely magnificent coming into the studio. Pleasure. Because it's a great insight. A lot of respect for the job you're doing there, and I hope that Blair, Theo as well, Lennon and the rest of the squad who have been absolutely magnificent. We had to try and fit you into the schedule because obviously, as per the terms of Stephen O'Donnell's contract, he's got to be in here every 3 weeks, roughly. so getting the gaffer in was unbelievable. I can't believe it. A joy to get Stuart Kettlewell in. Hopefully you enjoyed his insight as Motherwell manager. And thanks to Ruffy and, of course, to Tam McManus from myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for listening and watching.